I don't think it's the Iran thing. The main thing I just see is if I don't think people like if civilians are getting injured or killed.
We don't want it either.
We're gonna ask them what we want to ask them. So
I'll be honest. They gave us a paper with questions to ask, but they also said they kind of they gave us a script to ask.
You know what? The first thing we did, McDonald's, and to be honest, Burger King. I like Burger King more.
What's your go-to at McDonald's?
No, I'll tell you Burger King.
What's going on, everybody? Today, I'm going to do a breakdown of the Netanyahu interview on the Nelk Boys. Bibi Netanyahu, Prime Minister of Israel, he doesn't really do very many podcasts or interviews with American podcasters. He did one with the Nelk Boys, and it turned out extremely, extremely interesting. I want to show you how the comments absolutely roasted the Nelk Boys. And also, I want to show you how lightweight champion of the UFC, Ilia Topuria, actually somehow exposed that they were given questions before the thing to try to kind of guide them in the right direction. So a lot of stuff to get into. Give me a thumbs up on the video if it sounds good. Give me a thumbs up in the comment section. And for the algorithm, Dreamer Podcast starts now. I got a lot of clips to go through, so I'm going to get to it, and I really got to focus. So this is going to be a good one, folks. Dreamer Podcast starts now.
It's the Dream Rare Podcast. Welcome to the show. The way to get the news at the desk or on the road. Let's go. God is great and success in our control. The world is crazy, but we get better from obstacles. Yeah.
What's going on Facebook? What's going on YouTube? What's going on Rumble? Let's get right into it. And as people are saying in the comments, rest in peace to Hulk Hogan. Passed away today. Super sad of a heart attack. But let's get into it real quick. I'm just going to show you the comments before I show you clips from the interview because I want to stay true to the title of this video. Here's what the comment section had to say about the Nelk Boys, a very popular, right-leaning podcast, but it's really like a bro, let's gamble, bro, let's drink some, let's bro out, bro. It's a very like bro-y podcast. I don't dislike the Nelk Boys. I think they're funny, but I would say they're definitely not the sharpest tools in the shed. Here's what the comment section had to say. Top comment said unsubscribed with 43,000 likes. Someone said this was pitched to Netanyahu like this. Don't worry, these guys are idiots. You can use their platform to push whatever propaganda you want, and they won't push back on anything. Someone said I missed when YouTube used to show dislikes. Someone said you're basically interviewing modern Hitler, and he starts talking about how proud he is of committing war crimes. Someone said Israel is so desperate for positive PR that they sent their prime minister to a podcast with a bunch of pranksters. And then someone said, you guys didn't question him once. This is crazy. So that's just one round of comments. I figured we'd do two just to show you guys a little bit more. I scrolled down. I couldn't find a single positive comment on the whole thing. Someone said, asking him if he prefers Burger King or McDonald's while people are starving. This is insane. Someone said, you guys have the moral compass of a effing rock. Another person said, zero pushback. You guys just literally let a war criminal talk freely for an hour to millions of fans. Just horrible, horrible. You guys are truly. Someone else said, we are not qualified for this. They said we should not be doing this. Maybe listen to yourself next time. Mikey the Entertainer said, looking at these comments, I'm glad we're all on the same page. And then someone said, oh, I'm so happy the comment section did not disappoint. It's heartwarming to see that humanity is not dead, and it's not all a bunch of heartless idiots. So a lot of these comments have 15,000 up likes. I've never seen so many up likes on a ratio. So the Nelk Boys got absolutely destroyed by their own audience. And let me just keep it in perspective. The Nelk Boys is not a left-leaning podcast. They're super pro-Trump. They're super right-leaning. They're friends with Dana White. So usually, even when they interview controversial figures like Trump, most of the people like it. It's the exact opposite. So that's how profoundly unpopular Netanyahu seems to be among not just their audience, but a lot of people in America. And before I show you some clips of the interview, I just once again want to stay true to the title and show you that he did one of the Nelk Boys after the interview did some sort of live stream with Ilia Topuria, the lightweight champion, one of the best UFC fighters in the world. And Ilia Topuria had the journalistic integrity to ask him, even though they're just messing around. He's like, did you get to say what you want, or did they kind of slip you questions? And then the Nelk Boy was like, yeah, they kind of slipped us questions, but we asked what we wanted. So thank you randomly, Ilia Topuria, one of my favorite fighters, for actually doing more journalism than the Nelk Boys and getting them to admit that they had questions that they were really supposed to act. It's funny how the UFC fighter here does more than they did, but let's watch.
And there was just like 20 people in suits there.
Yeah.
The setup was already there. Both flags, we couldn't touch anything or move anything.
And they don't give you any restrictions like don't ask this.
I'll be honest, they gave us a paper with questions to ask. But they also said they kind of they gave us a script to ask, but we didn't really follow it.
Yeah.
We tried our very best to ask some questions, but I think
personally, I like the questions here.
Yeah, so Ilia Topuria said, did they ask you or did they give you a script or something along the lines? He said yes. So before I play a bunch of clips, I have like 10 or 12 clips to go through. I'm going to give my analysis of it. I just want to say it's pretty funny that they got ratioed terribly. It's hilarious that Ilia Topuria kind of showed that so we could see that was what went on. Not that it's the biggest deal in the world, but I will say this. Netanyahu, he's an interesting guy. I've never really seen a full-fledged interview like this of him, so I'm glad to see him at least just sit down and talk. I could see how people like him. I could see how people dislike him. I'm trying to be even-keeled now, and then I'll obviously give you my opinions later. With the Nelk Boys, I get why they're famous. They're definitely like relatable bros who just like sports and gambling and whatever, but I just find them in their interviews, they're just so like dumb. Like Kyle's like, yeah, like, he just kind of talks like a Valley girl. If a Valley girl was a guy, I shouldn't be this rude because, he's a successful guy and he doesn't claim to be that knowledgeable, but it's just like, how are you 30 years old? You know everybody, you're in the industry, but you just somehow know nothing. Or I don't know. I don't want to be rude, but he's just like, I shouldn't be here right now. I don't really know anything. Like I just party in Tel Aviv, when they fly me to Israel. So like, it's really cool. And I drink beers there, but I don't really know enough it's like, I get it, dude. You're not a journalist. You're not a news analyst. You're not a political figure. You're like, you own an alcohol company and you do a bunch of gambling ads to promote gambling to young kids to try to ruin their lives or something. So I get, everybody plays a role in this society, but if you're going to make millions of dollars off of alcohol and gambling, you would think like maybe at some point you would learn something like a fact, no, maybe not. It's probably smarter that he doesn't, because then he just gets to drink beer with Trump and Dana White and they just use him. They're like, let's let Netanyahu go on this podcast because these guys are so profoundly stupid. Like that one comment said, that they're not going to be able to like ask a single good or decent question, which, I think they got one or two in, but let's just get into the show now that I've done my little roast. First one is he talks about his relationship with Biden and Trump. They ask about that. And Netanyahu says that he likes Trump more than Biden. Not surprised. Let's listen to the first clip.
Do you have any type of relationship with Biden?
Not the same. I've known Biden for, 40 years? Almost as long. Well, both of them. Over the decades, it was a different relationship. It was a friendship, but also it evolved into, how shall I say this? Severe disagreements.
Mm-hmm.
So he likes Trump more than Biden, no surprise, but he's known Biden for a long time. I want you to listen closely when he asks him what he thinks about Trump, because he essentially says there's basically no difference between Trump and Israel. And as somebody that understands that you want partnerships and alliances, and I'm not a hateful person at all, this kind of further proves what I've been thinking for a while, which is Trump in some ways seems like the least compromised president when it comes to like certain domestic policies. He seems free. He seems interesting. But when it comes to Israel, he seems like probably the most compromised president in history. And I think this quote from Netanyahu kind of solidifies my thoughts and analysis and research over the last couple of years, where I'm coming to the conclusion that there's literally no difference between Trump and Israel. I mean, that's essentially what Netanyahu says here.
And with Donald Trump, we've had powerful agreements. And where there's no daylight between an American president and an Israeli prime minister, amazing things can happen. And where there's no daylight between an American president and an Israeli prime minister, amazing things can happen.
So when there's no daylight between an American president and an Israeli prime minister, amazing things can happen. There's no daylight. Netanyahu is basically proving the memes true. When people say, oh, Netanyahu's the president, Trump's the whatever. I know you could say it's a slight exaggeration, but he's literally like, there's no difference between what I think and what he thinks. And that's a great thing when there's no daylight between our decisions. Here's my issue with that. My issue with that is we are the United States of America, and Donald Trump, who has no daylight between his thoughts and Netanyahu's thoughts, he thinks that Israel should control the United States Congress. The United States has been around since 1776. Israel's been around since the 1900s, at least the modern state of it. So I don't think we should forfeit our entire sovereignty because Donald Trump is literally just Israel. And listen to what he says here. I mean, this is one of the craziest things. I played this a bunch, but I really want people to show their friends and see this, because the sitting president of the United States said that he thinks that a foreign country deserves to own our Congress. So it's not shocking to me what Netanyahu said. I've suspected this for a while.
Well, you know, the biggest change I've seen in Congress is Israel literally owned Congress. You understand that 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And it was so powerful. It was so powerful. And today it's almost the opposite. I mean, it's just amazing. I've never seen such a change. And we're not talking about over a very long period of time. But I think you know exactly what I'm saying. They had such power. Israel had such power, and rightfully, over Congress. And now it doesn't. It's incredible, actually.
So that's just casual Trump being disappointed, being like, a foreign country used to own our Congress, and now they don't anymore. And they really should. They deserve to, essentially. You know, they deserve to control our Congress. And if you want to start making connections, I want to just show you something I saw today. Morning Joe Scarborough said that John Kerry's on the Epstein files. Like, he was like, you know, there's a lot of people on the Epstein files. You know, John Kerry's on the Epstein files. And when he said John Kerry, it reminded me of something, because even though Trump and John Kerry are left wing and right wing and they pretend to be so different, I remember one time Trump retweeted John Kerry during 2020 to smear Thomas Massie, because Thomas Massie stood against the communist coronavirus package that the Uniparty was doing. And Trump and John Kerry just so happen to be on the same page. And, you know, they both hate Thomas Massie, one of the only congressmen that we have that doesn't seem to be controlled by a foreign nation and lobbyists. Isn't that just this totally spontaneous coincidence that there's no daylight between the prime minister of a foreign country and Trump? Trump wants that same exact country to literally control our Congress, and John Kerry and Donald Trump come together to try to kick out one of the only good Republicans we have who isn't sold out to that foreign country and the lobbyists. Let's take a listen.
Now, listen, what does that mean? John Kerry's name is in the Epstein files. There's a million people's names in the Epstein files.
And like I said, just to show proof, there's an article from 2020 when Trump shared John Kerry's tweet calling Rep. Thomas Massie an a-hole. And then Trump said, I never knew John Kerry had a sense of humor. So two people allegedly on the Epstein list just bonding over trying to kick Thomas Massie out of Congress. I'm sure that's just a totally spontaneous coincidence that just shouldn't be noticed at all. Anyway, let's get back to the video. And here's a clip of Netanyahu saying that, you know, not only did Iran want to attack America, which I've heard a lot, but apparently they wanted to attack Europe too. So if you don't want to help Israel do what they want to do for their sovereignty, understandable. He has every right to defend himself and try to exist and get countries to agree with him. But remember, they're coming to a city near you. It doesn't matter if you're in Los Angeles, New York, North Dakota, or apparently Europe now. Iran is just trying to attack everybody all over the world. And that's what Netanyahu seemed to say here. I never even knew that they had their missiles pointed at Europe, but that's what he says. And, you know, it's probably hate speech to disagree with Netanyahu, a.k.a. Trump, because there's no daylight between the two of them.
Where there's no daylight between an American president and an Israeli prime minister, amazing things can happen. Like our common enemies who chant death to Israel, death to America, and want to develop atomic bombs and the means to deliver them to this city and to every part of America. They had the G7. The president told me they were all going crazy. I mean, you know, in a positive way, because we liberated them, because those Iranian missiles were geared at Europe too, and ultimately at America with nuclear warheads. So we had the guts to do this. And
whoa, had no idea. And he always says it like wherever he is. I don't even know where he interviewed the Nelk Boys. Maybe he was in D.C., I think, at the time. But he's like, they're going to attack here. It's always like the city you're in. You know, they got nuclear warheads pointed at Europe, and they're always going to blow everyone up all the time until we do what Israel wants. Speaking of which, here's the history. I just found this little clip on Twitter. I think CNN put it together. Not that I trust CNN, but these are clips from all different news stations that they just so happen to compile. Here's Netanyahu since 1996 saying the same thing, that they're just like a couple months or a couple years away from a bomb. And when this came out, you know, everybody was like, oh, you're just hateful if you don't want to attack Iran. You just hate everybody if you don't want to beat up the nuclear thing. You don't want them to have nukes, right? And it's like, it's not that I want Iran to have nukes. It's just like the boy who cried wolf. If a boy cries wolf 10,000 times, am I anti-Semitic if I don't believe him the 1,001st time? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. It's like I have literal video proof that he said they were weeks and months away for decades, and it was never true. And the goalpost kept moving. It's actually insane to trust somebody that lies this many times, or at least exaggerates this many times, and then be like, yeah, but you have to believe him now, or else you're just really hateful towards a group. It's like, yeah, is that how it works? But here's that compilation clip.
The deadline for attaining this goal is getting extremely close. And Iran, by the way, is also outpacing Iraq in the development of ballistic missile systems that they hope will reach the eastern seaboard of the United States within 15 years. By next spring, at most, by next summer, at current enrichment rates, they will have finished the medium enrichment and move on to the final stage. From there, it's only a few months, possibly a few weeks, before they get enough enriched uranium for the first bomb. The foremost sponsor of global terrorism could be weeks away from having enough enriched uranium for an entire arsenal of nuclear weapons. That would place a militant Islamic terror regime weeks away from having the fissile material for an entire arsenal of nuclear bombs.
If not stopped, Iran could produce a nuclear weapon in a very short time. It could be a year, it could be within a few months, less than a year.
So yeah, once again, it's like, if you want to believe that they were really close to nuclear weapons, maybe. I don't know. I don't work for our intelligence communities, and I don't have the intel of like what really was going on in Iran. I have no idea. I'm on the internet just like everyone else, reading stuff and looking at videos. But in general, when it comes to Iran and the nukes, it's like you're always shamed, especially in, I would say, neocon, neoliberal, and even some Trump circles, where they're like, how dare, and Zionist circles, obviously, how dare you not believe him? It's like, we have video compilation footage of him saying that for 30 years. But just right now, when the president who has no daylight between him and Israel, the president who thinks a foreign nation should control our Congress, the president who's retweeting John Kerry to try to get Thomas Massie out of Congress because Thomas Massie isn't controlled by the donor class and a foreign nation. Oh, it's just this spontaneous coincidence that you just shouldn't notice. And Wall Street Journal published yesterday that, the Department of Justice told Trump that he's in the Epstein files. And then Morning Joe runs cover today, and he's like, yeah, it's, we got to just, John Kerry's in the Epstein files. So what? It's like, yeah, we know, bro. We know that your buddies and people that you work with in media and politics and you've talked to, we know that a lot of them are in the Epstein files. We're not like that's the new talking point in MAGA now, and even in Democrat circles, because people will say, well, if Trump was really complicit, then Democrats would have released it. Why would they release files that they're also in? You don't get it? It's one big club and you're not in it. The Epstein disclosure would destroy the entire fake left, the fake right, the media, the Democrats, the Republicans, Trump, Obama, maybe not him necessarily, but people that work with him, people who've been in politics, the Clintons. It's like this idea like, oh yeah, they're going to really, how do people not know that yet? You understand what I'm saying? That's why I'm so interested in Epstein disclosure. It's going to show everybody that it's all a big fake WWE show. At this point, we might as well call politics just like an Epstein party. It's like, do you vote for the blue Epstein party or the red Epstein party? Do you watch blue, Epstein media or red Epstein media? Do you want the Epstein wars or the Epstein wars? Do you guys want the Epstein speech laws or the Epstein speech laws? Because both parties are in on it. It's like, it's a joke. But anyway, let's get back to the little breakdown. Here is Netanyahu saying that basically people hate Israel because they hate America and America's Israel. I slightly disagree with him on it, respectfully.
They're out against America. They hate Israel because they see Israel as part of America. And in many ways, they're right.
No offense, my guy, but I think it's actually the exact opposite. I think a lot of these countries hate America because America funds Israel and they hate what Israel's doing. I believe if America wasn't funding Israel, they wouldn't care about America. It's like basically Israel's the friend of ours that is constantly fighting people. This is an analogy that I didn't come up with, but they're like, they're always going to bars and fighting people, and then America's coming to like help and give them weapons, etc. So, you could say it either way if you want, but I don't personally think that everybody just hates Israel because Israel's part of America. I think it's the exact opposite. I think a lot of countries that normally wouldn't care about America or our freedoms or our nation or any of that stuff, they hate us because we're giving weapons and we're giving financial and intelligence support to Israel, and they don't like what Israel's doing. In fact, a lot of them have openly stated that. But I like how he tried to, flip it there. And of course, the Nelk Boys' collective IQ or at least integrity levels are too low for them to ever catch something like that. But that's okay. That's what I'm here for. Anyway, let's go to the next clip. This is him talking about how him and Trump are building this new team that just never could have been done before. And, Trump calls him up and says, dude, we got this new alliance that like just never could have happened without me in office.
I don't think it was.
We're bringing in the B2s.
I don't think it was an open line, but we have these great conversations. We're very open with each other, and he said it's like a team that has never happened before, and I can categorically vouch that, having worked with successive American presidents, I've never seen anything like it.
So Netanyahu has confirmed that Trump is pretty much his favorite president. He's the most alike Netanyahu, and like I played before, just almost identical. There's no daylight between what Netanyahu thinks and what Trump thinks, and Trump loves it, Netanyahu loves it. Two peas in a pod. I forgot one clip that I'll just talk about now. One of the first things they said, like they were talking about Trump, and then they said, what's the biggest misconception of Israel? I listened to the whole podcast, and Netanyahu said, people think Israel's this bad state, but we're really like super free. And he said that, like Tel Aviv is basically the gayest place, or like super gay or super open, I think he said, but he meant gay. I know what he said I know what he meant because he was saying that they hang gays from cranes in Iran, and that Tel Aviv is the opposite of like a place that hangs gays from cranes, and they're super pro-gay. And then the Nelk Boys are like, yeah, I party in Tel Aviv. It's awesome. And I've heard Tel Aviv is awesome. I've heard Israelis are awesome. No disrespect, but it's like, first of all, I looked up and I used AI, not to say that it's like the be all end all, but AI is pretty unbiased. And especially when it comes to Israel, I wouldn't say they're like pro or anti. They're pretty straight shooters. And I said, is there any evidence that Iran hangs gay people like for being gay from a crane? There's literally no evidence. Like he just keeps saying this constantly. And like in Republican Zionist circles, they keep saying that. There's no evidence that they just hang gay people because they're gay. Like there's literally none. AI couldn't even find any on the internet. What AI said is they do have a public hanging policy for really extreme crimes. And also sodomy is not like promoted or really accepted in Iran, but I don't think that's the penalty for it. And there's no recorded cases of that, according to all the research that I've done. So it's like in America, like say there's a criminal who like does something crazy, right? They kill a bunch of people, they rob a bunch of people. You try to deport them. They say, oh, you're just being racist. Or let's just say they got the death penalty or they went to jail because they did some egregious things to like multiple women. It's like someone else will be like, oh, they're just doing that because of their skin color. That's kind of what he's doing over there. It's like they do have severe punishment for certain crimes, but I don't think they're just hanging people because they have a rainbow flag necessarily. But as long as he just keeps saying that, maybe people will believe it's true. And another thing that I want to say too before I move on, of course, I don't care or endorse anything they're doing in Iran because I'm not Iranian. I'm not Islamic. I've never been there. I have nothing to do with that nation. And I really know very little. Like, I just don't care. When it comes to America, it's like this idea that we're this pro-sodomy nation. That's not a Christian value, and that's not an American value. I mean, maybe it's an Israeli value that they're pushing onto us, or maybe it's a new liberal value that liberals are pushing onto us. I don't know whose values they are, but it's not an Islamic value, and it's actually not a Christian value. Like sodomy is not supposed to be like celebrated in the streets for an entire month and steal the rainbow from Christ. Like it's not like let's celebrate your sexuality for like it's weird that they're doing that, and it's not always been an American thing. Even in the 2000s, California voted against gay marriage. California, like I don't think, me personally, like if I'm not gonna judge you, regardless of who you are or what you're doing. It's not, I'm not God. I'm not, I got my own. I try to focus on myself. I try to not be like a judge of people's morality. But I don't think that sodomy, like promoting and celebrating sodomy, is a good thing at all. And it's definitely not a Christian value, and it's not historically an American value. So this new idea of like, this is who we are. Yeah, this is who we've been for the last 20 years as our country's fallen apart. But when our country wasn't falling apart, we didn't believe in those values. And I think there's a massive correlation between those values and falling apart. And you could say that's hateful, but it's also biblical. It's also the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, among other things in that story. So this idea that you can just like, oh, how dare them for and then he inserts a thing that's not really happening. And he's like, they're the women. It's like, we live in a feminist society now. We live in a pro-sodomy society. And I believe, I'm not blaming women or homosexuals or anybody. I'm not saying it's like your fault or, and I'm not trying to be a hater. I just think America's falling apart because we've lost complete like normality. Like we're on 8th wave feminism. I don't think that any wave of feminism was really as moral as they said. And now we're on this weird, like, I don't know. It's like they'll promote homosexuality for an entire month, but then they say it's racist for people to want their families to own their neighborhoods and the demographics not to shift. So, it's like this idea. I like freedom and liberty from the government. I like the First Amendment, but this idea that it's an American and it's a Christian thing to just like be like, anytime you ask about Israel, like that's like the first talking point. It used to be of Charlie Kirk and even Netanyahu in this interview. It's like, they're mean to the gays and we're really nice to the gays. It's like, okay, that's cool. I get it. So now I should ignore like what you're doing during the war because you're nice to gay people in Tel Aviv. I don't like, it's just such a low level talking point, and it's not designed to work on me, but it's designed to work on liberals and leftists who generally don't like Israel. And it doesn't seem to be working on them either. So I don't know who that talking point is for. It's not for me. It's not working on like far leftists. Here's a clip of them complaining about anti-Semitism, Netanyahu, Kyle, and then Steiny, who is one of the Nelk Boys, and I guess he's Jewish. So, they're talking about anti-Semitism and how hard it is for him in America now.
Yeah, some of the anti-Semitism I see is pretty nuts.
Yeah, well,
yeah. I'll tell you, I'm an American Jew, and it's hard to identify as that.
I understand.
You almost don't even want to own it.
But I think we just changed history. I see American Jews are very proud now. Jews around the world are very proud because we, these guys were out to murder us and do another Holocaust. The Holocaust, the Nazis murdered 6 million Jews. There are now 7 million Jews, close to 8 million Jews in Israel.
So I want to talk about this because the dynamic between like what Netanyahu thought about it, what Steiny, who's an American Jew, thought about the anti-Semitism. It's like this stark contrast because I think I see what they're both saying, and I want to be as respectful as possible. I see what Netanyahu's saying. He's saying after October 7th, there's been a huge like awakening of Jewish people and they've been more prideful. I've seen it as well. I feel like it was almost like a switch in people's brains. Like obviously like a lot has happened since October 7th, but I noticed certain people that I'm friends with, not all of them, but like certain Jewish people, like after October 7th, it's like they became way more nationalistic. They became way more, I would say, pro-Jewish. And then they, that's like I would say the positive if you're Netanyahu and you want Jewish people to be proud and Israeli, et cetera. But, I also see what Steiny's saying too, because I don't, he didn't really push back much, but he's an American Jewish person who wants to like be loved, like he's just a guy, just like everybody else. Steiny's like a bro, he wants to like live peacefully in America. We all do. We all want to live peacefully in America, regardless of our ethnicity and our religion. So he's a little bit concerned. And Netanyahu doesn't seem so concerned. Like Netanyahu's like, yeah, but we're crushing. And Steiny's like, yeah, but like people hate me now more than they used to. And like, I don't really like that. And people shouldn't hate him. And I'm not saying it's okay. But what I'm saying is like just from my vantage point, I would never dislike somebody because of their ethnicity or their religion. But I do feel like a lot of people that are pro-Israel are acting insane, and it's making people not like them. So I don't know Steiny. I've never really paid attention to the Nelk Boys. I don't know what his stances on Israel are, nor do I care, nor will it make me judge him as a person. But it's like if you're one of these, like, like Netanyahu says, you were awakened after October 7th, and you're like spewing out all the Zionist talking points and the Israeli talking points. It's not to say that you can't support your homeland or you can't want to go live in Israel or you can't love your ethnicity. You can. Who am I to tell you can't? But it's like, it's not popular, not just because like people are, acting crazy. Some are obviously, but it's just like like it's all bad propaganda. It's all bad PR. Like anybody that I've known that's really fallen into that, like I'm awakened after this moment and I'm a different person, they've been profoundly more unlikable. I could think of like 20 different people that I follow online where it's like they're just annoying now. They're way faker than they were. They're being more dishonest. Like they basically threw away their entire character, personality, integrity, and trust to basically sound like a Netanyahu, repetition parrot. And it's like that's driving a lot of the dislike in America, but also I would say it's the war. It's the fact that tens of thousands of women and children are being slaughtered. And anytime people mention it, they're accused of blood libel. That's not really helping. There's anti-Semitism hate speech laws being passed. I saw recently 2 AIPAC-funded politicians are trying to basically work with the ADL to pressure tech companies to censor more. That's an anti-American thing, like they're like censoring for one race, one religion, and one country. These type of things don't make people like it. So, I feel like that it's a very small moment that I just played, but I feel like it's the difference between how people are feeling. You have your super Israeli people like Netanyahu, where they're like, this is really good because now we're all strong, we're all united, we're all crushing, and now people are nationalistic and way more pro-Jewish, which is true. I've seen a lot of that. But the thing is, to the average person, it's annoying, not because you're pro-Jewish or pro-Israel or love your country. It's just the talking points. Like, it's just that dynamic has made it uncomfortable for everybody. I mean, this entire nation is uncomfortable now. You walk into a store, a lot of like cities, it looks like you're in a foreign nation. Like, this country has lost its identity. It's lost its culture. Cities are uncomfortable for me because they're disgusting. They're filled with crime. When you go to certain airports, the employees there look like they're not even American and they hate you. Like, this whole country is uncomfortable. But also more uncomfortable making was, America funding 2 wars. When we're fighting Russia for Ukraine and funding Ukraine, it's uncomfortable for everybody. When we're funding Israel to fight Palestine and Iran, it's also uncomfortable. So, I get it from both sides. I'm very sympathetic, but I think that clip just really shows the dynamic of somebody who just doesn't seem to care that their PR is doing terrible. And he's almost like delusional about it. Like, I listened to other parts of the interview and Netanyahu was saying, people like winners, people will agree with us, people will like us. I get what he's saying. He's a very interesting guy, and he's definitely like a powerful leader. He's been a leader for a long time. There's a reason he's so successful, Netanyahu. You can't knock his hustle. But this idea that like everyone's going to just get on board with them at some point, I mean, maybe, only time will tell. But for me personally, I've seen in my own personal circles, on the internet, everywhere, Nelk Boys, like the PR for Israel is at an all-time low. And people like Netanyahu just don't care. He doesn't care that he's making his people look bad all over the world. He doesn't care that he's making everybody uncomfortable everywhere. He doesn't care that America's falling apart. He doesn't like, it's just, I don't know if he's right. I don't think he's as popular as he thinks he is. And I don't know if he knows what he's doing to the, global, I would say, PR of his race, his religion, and his country. I think I don't think everyone's just going to get on board. I think it's going to require some honesty, some conversation, and not just like calling everybody Hamas every 2 seconds. But what do I know? Maybe he's got a plan. Maybe he'll figure it out. God bless him. Good luck. But I don't know. I don't think so. And even like I said before I move on to the next clip, the Nelk Boys are not left wing. They're not communists. They're not socialists. They're not Bernie bros. They're not Hillary people. They're right wing Trump supporters who have a very, I wouldn't say uneducated, but like they're very simpleton right wing content for like bros and people. I've never seen any of their videos get ratioed this bad. They've interviewed some of the most controversial people in the world. Even their O.J. Simpson interviewed it. They interviewed O.J. Simpson. It didn't get ratioed this bad. Trump, people like their Trump interview. Elon, people like this is the worst backlash they've ever had because that's how unpopular Netanyahu is. And that's how bad of a job they did asking him questions. But, I'm sure he handpicked them because he knew that they're not smart or honest enough to figure out any decent questions to really ask. But let's play another clip. Here's another one. This is, I'll see what it is after I play it. I'm kind of losing track.
You have a business right now?
Mm-hmm.
Are you regulated?
Yes.
You are? Why are you regulated? You're regulated? By what? You should have the freedom to say whatever you want, to talk whatever you want. I didn't realize there's regulation on podcasts. Is that right?
Not anymore. Actually, since President Trump won, we've noticed all the social medias have been a lot more pro-free speech.
Yeah, all right. So I'm for free markets, the marketplace of goods, services, ideas.
All right, so this clip profoundly annoys me for multiple reasons. First of all, the least reason it annoys me is they said that Trump is the reason that social media has backed off of the censorship. It was Elon Musk who helped that. Even before Trump won, Elon helped drive the competition, and Elon helped drive the, I would say like break up the monopoly of liberals owning stuff, and not just liberals, but even like fake opposition Republicans. Like Elon did a really good job. So I think he deserves more credit than Trump. Trump winning didn't hurt, definitely helped a little bit. They realized they were fully defeated, but I think Elon deserves 90% of that credit, not Trump. But what really annoyed me about that is, to the average listener, clearly who doesn't believe him anyway, so it doesn't matter. He's trying to act like, oh, you're being regulated in America. I can't believe that a podcast would be regulated, as if Israel's this bastion of free speech. Are you allowed to live in Israel and disagree with what the government's doing? I mean, I guess people are protesting out there. And I remember a teacher got arrested after October 7th because he disagreed. I don't know exactly what he said, but I don't believe that their free speech laws are as strict as, or as free as America's. Like, it's just, I understand Israel's a great place and a lot of people love it, but I don't want to be attached at the hip. He's like, everyone hates us because they hate you. It's the other way around, dude. I'm sorry. It's the other way around. People hate us because we're funding you. It's not, they just randomly hate you because it's the other way around. And then it's like, we're the exact same country. We want the same things. But then he's like, but you're being regulated. You don't have the freedom to do what you, oh man, I can't believe that. As if he's like, we're exactly the same, but they're just so much more free than us. They're not. It's not even true. Like, we're different countries. There's pros and cons to both countries. But America, I think, has a better liberty-based constitution, better free speech laws, and less censorship and less speech policing than Israel does. I think we do a better job of that. And the fact that he's trying to play it off on the podcast that we're doing a worse job than them, I don't think that that's the case. Could be debatable. I'm not buying it. Slightly annoying, but it's okay. That's what conversations are for.
There's still a lot of gray area, like with your average American, on what actually happened on October 7th, how it happened, why the response took so long.
Well, what happened was that at 6:29 in the morning, several thousand of these Hamas murderers crossed the fence from Gaza into the neighboring communities and butchered everything in sight.
What's your response to people that say it could have been prevented?
I agree with them. Completely. And it was just horrible. And the other thing that happened was they took 255 people hostage.
So shout out to Kyle from the Nelk Boys. That was the best journalistic question he asked the whole time, and it was a good one. He said, what do you say to people who think it could have been prevented? And Netanyahu responded, he said, I agree. Unfortunately, they didn't press him more to be like, can you explain that? Like, what went wrong, or like who's to blame? They kind of just let him off the hook, which just makes the piece of journalism they did pretty much non-existent. But he did say that he thought it could have been prevented. This is the part that I don't fully understand. Like, I know it's hard to, I'm just going to be honest. It's hard to question Israel at all because they're the hardest country to disagree with. Like, they have a historical event that gets you thrown in jail if you disagree with it. So it's like, you basically just have to be like, yes, everything you say is true. You're the greatest. You've never lied. And if I ever say you lied, I committed blood libel. I'm so sorry. They even got RFK Jr. out here tweeting about blood libel. It's like, aren't you supposed to be the Health and Human Services Director, not the Anti-Semitism Monitor of America? But just like Trump, RFK is compromised, and people will find out that eventually. But in general, if you haven't already, it's pretty obvious. I like what he does with the health, but on that topic, there's just one topic that everyone seems to be compromised on. Isn't that just fascinating? But anyway, yeah, we're never getting those files. But speaking of which, and RFK flew on his plane, by the way, admitted that, but I'm sure it was just a spontaneous coincidence. And now he's just tweeting about blood libel because he just really cares about it. I'm sure that it could be. I'm not even being sarcastic. But anyway, back on that note, this is what I never fully understood, but I do understand, because there's people that they just know that they can't question Israel. Like, if you question anything Israel does historically or now, like, your life is going to get a lot harder, especially if you're in mainstream circles. So I've talked to people like, not talked to this person, but I've seen him talk publicly. Charlie Kirk, he questioned it on Patrick Bet-David's podcast. Like, he just said, I don't understand how they allowed hand gliders to fly over the border. I've been to Israel. They have the whole thing locked down. They could stop like a missile in midair with nearly 100% precision, but they just couldn't stop hand gliders from gliding into a festival slowly and then killing a bunch of people. Like, that's what Charlie Kirk said, right? He's never talked about it again, because it's like everybody thinks that, but then you just can't talk about it publicly. but then you just got to follow whatever's going on. Like I've talked to people that I know that support Israel, and they've said the same thing to me. They were like, I support Israel. I like what they're doing, but I think something weird happened there because I know how good the security is in Israel. And it seems like there was either a stand down order or something happened. Cause I don't know. So this is the reason I'm bringing this up, right? I know you're not supposed to talk about any of this because your life could be ruined at any given moment. Cause that country never makes mistakes. They never do anything wrong. And for certain, they're the most moral people in the world. And anybody who disagrees is an anti-Semite or whatever. But in general, it's like even the most pro-Israel people I know also think that. So it's like, it's just like they compare it to 9/11 because 9/11 was a huge tragedy in America. And it is very similar to 9/11 because even after 9/11, everybody was like, now we have to do all these things because I'm emotional. And even as a kid, I knew 9/11 was real. It's not like I thought it was fake, but we're going to these countries that have nothing to do with bin Laden. And we said we were fighting Al-Qaeda. And now 20 years later, an Al-Qaeda member runs Syria and nobody seems to care, which proves that I think America and our allies were probably working alongside of them. And they were never really as big of a threat as they said. Sadly, that seems to be the truth, or else they would be furious that an Al-Qaeda member runs Syria, but they're not. They seem to be happy that an Al-Qaeda member is running Syria because they like Al-Qaeda members more than Bashar al-Assad, apparently, to run a country. With all that being said, it's like 9/11 happened and everyone's like, let's just stop thinking because there's a tragedy and let's just listen to whatever George Bush said. It's kind of the same thing here. It's like, I'll talk to people that'll be like, I didn't say this, but they'll say this to me. They'll be like, I think there was a stand down order and I think that they let it happen. And I'm like, okay, so you think that, but now you're going to not question any other aspect of it and just call people anti-Semites every 2 seconds and just say, now we have to slaughter all the people of that country because they're all Hamas now because of that tragedy. Like, that doesn't seem weird to you that you think that there was a stand down order, yet you don't care that they're doing all that stuff. Like it's just crazy. But I wish they would have questioned him a little bit more about that, but I wouldn't. I know it's not a good idea for them. They fly to Israel all the time. They've partied there a bunch. And in general, I think, Trump, who's completely compromised, RFK, who's compromised, most of Congress who's compromised, they're basically working with Israel, it seems like, to make October 7th like the new Holocaust, in the sense of like, you're not really supposed to question any aspect of it. And probably your kids in 20 years will be learning in school books that, if anybody ever questions October 7th, they're the worst person in the world and they should be thrown in jail in Germany or other countries, which it is an offense. If you question history in Germany, it's literally a prison sentence. So it's like the most jailable offense historically. Like, if you say something wrong in Argentina, you could literally be set on trial for questioning Zionists in a way they don't want to be questioned. Like, Zionists have speech laws all over the world to stop people from talking about whatever they don't want them to talk about, which is insane. I mean, that doesn't wreak trust, but of course I'm just supposed to sit here and say, somebody as an American who believes in the First Amendment, I'm supposed to say, yeah, I wouldn't trust my own religion for doing that. I wouldn't trust my own politicians. I wouldn't trust anybody ever that has that severe speech laws to stop someone from talking about something. But I have to trust them because I just don't want to get in trouble because it's a new thing. So they're trying to make October 7th the new Holocaust, and Trump has tweeted about it. Everyone's tweeted about it. They're like moving legislation and working it into certain speech things to be like, this is the new thing. You need to never talk about it. Even though Charlie Kirk is so pro-Israel, he's questioned it even more than I have. But I guess that moment's gone, and we'll never revisit that again. With that being said, I looked something up because I saw someone say that Ghislaine Maxwell's father, Robert, had control of American history books. And I thought it was one of those sloppy theories online because obviously not everything you read online is true. And I looked it up a little bit and I found out there was a lot of truth to it, which is crazy to me that I think Robert Maxwell owned Macmillan like history books. And then they merged with, what's the other big one, that McGraw-Hill or something. And actually, Robert Maxwell did have a large control over the company that controlled the American history books. I'm not saying he changed our history. I'm not saying he wrote it. But if you want to do your own research and be even more accurate than I'm just spitballing, trying to remember what I just read a couple of days ago, look up Robert Maxwell's connection to American history books such as Macmillan and McGraw-Hill. I believe it's those two, but I might have made an error. I don't know. If you look it up, you could probably correct me. All right, let's read a few more. Let's see the last couple ones. Here's another clip from him.
That means you don't support America, because for the terrorists, you know what? The terrorists are fighting us because they say we're America and America is Israel. We have the same free societies, the same free values. They want to drive us back to the dark ages of this tyranny. And Americans who say that, I think, basically say, okay, so you support those who chant death to America?
I don't believe that at all. I believe that when I was maybe like 12 or something, like maybe after 9/11 a little bit, like they hate us because of our freedoms. That's not true. I don't think it was ever true. I think that's the propaganda lie that they told us. And not to say that you should ever like or trust this person, because this is one of the most evil people that has hurt America. But recently on TikTok and other platforms, the Bin Laden letter went viral because nobody ever heard of it before. But apparently he wrote a letter and he said that the reason that he did 9/11 was because American taxpayers are funding the genocide in Palestine and they're funding Israel to do it. And American people are complicit, whether they know it or not. Not justifying what he did, because I think it's evil. I think it's evil to kill innocent people. I think the people who died on 9/11 had nothing to do with it. And we live in a country like others where we can't vote our way out of it and we have no say. And we're getting robbed all the time during taxes. So it's not, I'm in 0% justifying it, 100% condemning it. But I'm just trying to be accurate. It's like, did he hate us for our freedoms? No, I'm pretty sure he hated us because we're funding Israel so they can do what they want in Palestine. And he didn't like that. Not to say it's right, not to say it's just. It's completely evil what he did. But this idea that everyone just hates us for our freedom, I don't think it's true. I think they hate us because we fund a country and they hate what that country's doing. Just like I said earlier, not justifying what any terrorist does ever. All terrorists are evil, including the ones that work with the U.S. and Israeli government that they don't call terrorists because they end up funding them to overthrow a country that they want to overthrow, like in Syria, when they were funding rebel groups that ended up working alongside al-Nusra, al-Qaeda, and al-Arasham, or however you say it, which now I believe they probably control the government through their al-Qaeda proxy guy, who's the leader of Syria. But in general, all terrorists are evil. I'm just being like, I just can't sit and listen to an interview where they're like, oh yeah, they just hate us and Israel because they hate America. Yeah, no, I don't think so. I don't think people really had that huge of a problem with us, but who knows? I mean, people have problems all the time. I'm sure there'd be some other controversy going on if it wasn't for our alliance with Israel. So once again, not justifying it, just being clear. I think that this is the oldest boomer Zionist, like neocon propaganda lie that all these countries just hate us for our freedom. No, that's not why they hate us. All these countries, these countries don't like sodomy, and we have the biggest sodomy parades in our country. Not a Christian value, not an American value, not a conservative value. Wasn't even a liberal value until 50 years ago. I don't even think there were probably, you go back to the Roman times, a lot of the kings and stuff, not the kings, but I don't know. A lot of people were being gay. It's not like homosexuality was just invented in like the 1970s in San Francisco, but this idea that like everyone just hates us for our freedom and the way that we can prove that we're free is because we're like, we promote sodomites everywhere. It's like, is that free? So was Thomas Jefferson not free? Did George Washington have the wrong idea with libertarian-based principles because he wasn't like a full-blown sodomite? Allegedly. I mean, maybe he was. I have no idea. But it's like the talking points are just so old. It's like 2016 Trump supporter talking points that you get brainwashed by PragerU and Turning Point with. You're like, the reason we hate Palestine is because they're not gay enough. How come the liberals don't care? Well, I'll tell you why the liberals don't care, because liberals are hypocrites and they don't, they pick and choose their spots. And even if they're right about something, they're usually right about it for the wrong reason. It's like, I don't spend my life trying to figure out why they dislike and like certain things. Like, why don't they care that, Israel's super gay and Iran's not gay? I don't know. Why don't you ask a liberal why they don't care? I saw some transgender writer write an article and they said, I'm torn. I really don't like what Israel's doing, but also I get my hormone therapies from Israel. So, there's some critical thoughts going on there. Like, should I like who gives me my hormones or my transgender pills, or do I hate them because of the genocide? Like, it was like this brilliant op-ed where I'm I'm talking like Robert E. Frost level of poetry, but like, jokes aside, I mean, that is an interesting kind of like quarrel to have in your head. It's like, do I want my pills? Or do I want to stop the war? I have no idea. That's for you to decide. But let's play one more clip, and then maybe I'll read a few comments. Probably not. I'm going to keep this under an hour, keep it as brief as I can, and I'll just do a summary after this.
But it also harkens back to the agony that my parents had, that I had, and I always say that you should use force very judiciously, because life is precious and war is hell. It really is. It's not a cliche, it's true.
So Netanyahu says you should use force very judiciously, as if in the world right now, he's just the most careful, judicious force user at all. Even if you ask AI, who once again, like I said, I've used AI a decent amount for research. I wouldn't say it's pro or anti-Israel. I would say sometimes it seems pro-Israel, sometimes it seems anti-Israel. I would say the one that I use, Grok, it's pretty fair. I mean, nothing's perfect, but I've caught it. I would say it's almost like more in favor of them than anti. But I've asked it like how many women and children have they killed, and even AI says like tens of thousands. So I don't know if that's the most judicious use of force, but I have no idea. I don't know exactly what's going on there. You know, he says they're all hiding in hospitals and he just has to blow things up. They hit churches by mistake. I don't know. You know, it's only the people there know what's going on and the people doing it. And God, I haven't been there, so I don't really know. With all that being said, I'm going to wrap it up, maybe read a few comments, and I want to keep this under an hour. I would say, you know, I listened to the full podcast. The Nelk Boys are the perfect person for Netanyahu to talk to because they're brainless morons for the most part. There used to be a guy named Bob Menery who used to be on the podcast, and Bob, you know, I could see why people think he was annoying because he was a little annoying, but he was, I think, the smartest person in the Nelk Boys. Like, he was the one leading the interviews, asking questions, and I think that podcast with him on it used to be somewhat interesting because Bob would ask some pretty good questions, and he was definitely like the best journalist there. And since he's been gone, it's hard to watch the Nelk Boys. Like, I listened to it because it was a Netanyahu interview, and it's interesting, but the Nelk Boys, they're just like, yeah, bro, like get your moon pay and your prize picks, and we gamble and crypto, and we just drink beer, we're brewing out, bros, and bruh. It's like, I feel like I get dumber when I listen to him talk. Even listening to that interview, like Kyle, he just looks like somebody whose brain is like this big. He's just like, it's just like, it's like, come on, bro. I get it. You don't need to know everything, and politics is stressful. And you've vacationed and taken the trip to Israel so many times, you can't possibly do your job now because you're in too deep. I understand, but at the same time, it's like, come on, dude. Like, prepare a little bit more. Once again, they're 30 years old. They're not in politics, and I feel like Netanyahu is one of the most powerful people in the world, and he's very shrewd. He's a very shrewd guy. He's in some ways, he could be scary. Like, he's been in politics for decades. He's always seems to get his way. I understand why they wouldn't want to press him too hard, but I do think like they just let him talk so much and they barely push back at all. Like, I was expecting pretty much nothing out of them, but I would say even with my low expectations, they did bad. So I understand why they get ratioed. I understand why the comments are upset. And, I think that Netanyahu's team picked that purposely. Like, if he went on Theo Vaughn, there'd be a lot more pushback. If he went on Tim Dillon, there'd be more pushback. Even Joe Rogan, there would be more pushback. So I think the Nelk Boys were like the perfect brainless, empty vessels for Netanyahu to basically just talk through. And the thing is, though, I don't think it worked as well as they thought it would work. Like, I think he thought, oh man, people are going to see me and see the humanity in me, which I did. I do like if I could, after I've been disagreed, like, I do think that Netanyahu, when he's on point, he can be very charming. He can be very likable. He can be very like cool. I see that angle of him. But I just think it's almost like Trump, where he's been doing the shtick for so long that it just doesn't hit like it used to. Like, that shtick would have worked 7 years ago when people didn't know anything. Now with the internet, now with new information, now with the war breaking out, now with the amount of casualties, now with the amount of like information on the other side, he's using the same talking points he's always used. He's like, gays for Gaza is like chickens for KFCs. That works if you're in a room with like Zionist Christian boomers and Trump supporters. They'll be like, haha, that's a good one. But like, I heard that for years now. It's not going to work on a podcast of young people who are paying attention more. And that's, I saw recently the polls of Trump among young men. I don't know if it was young people or young men, but it went from like 73% approval to below 50%. And a lot of people were saying, oh, this is bad news for Republicans. it's definitely not good news for Republicans. But the thing is, I might be wrong because I don't fully understand that age demographic. But from what I'm seeing, I think he had everybody's support because he's funny, he's cool. He said he was going to shake up the system a little bit. And since he's gotten into office, I think the Epstein stuff is destroying him. And I think the right-wing youth is way smarter than the right-wing boomers. They might not be as like traditionally smart. I think boomers are like traditionally, like, we're going to miss the boomers. We love the boomers because they have their stuff together as a family. You know what I'm saying? Like boomers are awesome with like traditional values that we need in this country. I love the boomers. But when it comes to like understanding foreign policy and critically thinking about the two-party system, boomers, their brains are just fried from like 50 years of Fox News and Newsmax and now Trump and George Bush and MSNBC. So it's like boomers, they're just so bad at like, they're like, if you're not left, you're right. I hate Trump. I love Trump. I'm a boomer and I hate Donald Trump. I'm a boomer and I love Donald Trump. I watch Fox News. I watch CNN. I'm mad at you. And the bankers and the Epstein is just like looking at you like, these idiots still don't understand it, you know? So I feel like that's why young men are turning against Trump now. It's not because they're becoming left-wing. It's just because Trump is too left-wing for them and he's too fake. And we all want Epstein disclosure. And Trump seems to work for the same people that it seems like Epstein worked for. I figured this out years ago. And it sucks, just to be clear, because I know some people hate me for voting for Trump. I've said for 5 years now, the real left and right is the Bolsheviks versus the Zionists. And the Bolsheviks are pretty much Zionists at this point. They may eventually fall to Bolsheviks who aren't Zionists because the Nancy Pelosi's might get outrun by the Zohran Mamandis. But, and I think AOC is a plant, by the way. I don't even think she's like a real opposition. I think she's kind of like their plant to get both sides. But in general, it's like it's like either you vote for open borders and Mayorkas destroys your country, or you vote for the Zionist who semi-cares about your country but also wants to sell it out to Israel and throw Thomas Massie out. Those are the only two options. It's not like I think one of the parties is really great, but it's like, I guess I got to vote for the party that kind of wants to close the border and kind of wants to not destroy my nation, sort of, but also wants to get, like, I get why people don't vote, but like that's what's going on in politics. And I don't think the Epstein falls too far from that tree. I don't think he's this nothing burger story. I think figuring out who Epstein worked for, figuring out what Epstein was doing, and figuring out why Epstein was so connected to every major person in politics, I think that would be the key to seeing why the two-party system is fake. I think it's everything. I think it would be like the Wizard of Oz, where you see him behind the curtain and you realize it's just a small guy. Like, that's how big it is. That's why none of them want to do it. It's like, well, why don't the Democrats do it? Because they're also the guy behind the curtain. There's two parties behind the curtain doing a WWE show. Rest in peace, Hulk Hogan. Like, that's what it is. So I hope to see something happen with that. Someone said in the comment section before I leave, we always like to react to a good comment. He said, boomers pushed and relished feminism. What are you babbling about, Anomaly? Blah, 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 blah. That's my like Porky Pig version of me babbling. I just wanted to babble for you because I was like, if you want me to babble, I'll give you a blah, 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 blah. That's all, folks. But I do have to go soon. It's like, you come to my live stream, what are you babbling about with the feminism and the boomers? It's like, bro, why don't you start a channel and you talk to people and see if people care about it? I feel like I was making so much sense today, but it's okay. All right, let's see if one or two more comments before we leave. I'm keeping this under an hour, so let's make it the best 2 minutes of our lives. Actually, that's an exaggeration. If this is the best 2 minutes of your life sucks. And we'll both work together to make it better, because this is a highlight of my week for sure, but it's definitely not the best moment of my life, and I hope it's not yours either. But I did hope you have a good time. David on Facebook said, hold on, I'm trying to read, but it went away. David I lost you, David. Well, actually, let me go up, because if you're David on Facebook and I said I was going to read your comment, but then I didn't, you got to be a little disappointed, and we don't want to disappoint a David today. So he said, they don't want to understand it's too ugly of a truth to face. They enjoy a better America than what they're leaving to younger generations. They don't want to be responsible for where we are currently, so they choose a side that agrees with all their biases and go all in. I think that's a good summary. All right, let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Once again, just to wrap it up, the interview was interesting. I would say like 90-something% of the people who watched it didn't like it. I would say it's the most ratioed Nelk Boys comment of all time. It was profoundly unpopular, and I could see why. And also, I think it was funny that Ilia Topuria kind of showed that they got a script handed to them. Not that they followed it, but script or no script, the Nelk Boys were not prepared to ask any journalistic questions, and they'd rather just go party in Israel, which is fine. That's what they are. They're party boys. But, you know, this is my reaction. This is my semi-decent attempt at journalism. And God bless America. God bless Israel. God bless Palestine. God bless the world. God bless everybody. And we need to have real conversations to get the peace and stop fighting.